There's only one company that I trust when it comes to my prepping and my survival. That's Fortress Survival LLC. Check out and get this new body armor, multi-cam, hard-hitting and in your face. Again, that's Fortress Survival LLC. Click the link below right now. Get it right now. Don't wait. Support AMTV and support Fortress Survival LLC. Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV Alternative Media Television. It is Friday, June 26, 2015. A lot in the news today. The Supreme Court of the United States ruled in favor of gay marriage across the country. And the President of the United States, Barack Obama, made a phone call to the plaintiff and said, wow, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, this is just a great advancement for the USA, etc., etc. I also wanted to talk about the truth about the Dylann roof shooting. Also talk again about this Confederate flag debate and how all of this ties in. But first I want to start with the quote today. This is from Eleanor Roosevelt. Great minds discuss ideas. Average minds discuss events. Small minds discuss people. Let me repeat that. Great minds discuss ideas. Average minds discuss events. Small minds discuss people. Let's talk about Dylann Roof and the Confederate flag. Because again, I was watching Jon Stewart of Comedy Central. I believe this is his last year. And he's got a liberal perspective and a liberal bias towards the Confederate flag. He thinks it's racist. It should be removed from state capitol buildings, etc., etc. Doesn't see the value or the historical perspective of the Confederate flag. And is specifically speaking to people and events, and most specifically and more specifically, racism, which is what the United States is tapping into right now. It's what the people are focused on through this divide and conquer strategy. But we need to take a top-down, high-level approach and better understand what is the agenda, the idea. Again, great minds focus on ideas. What is the idea around this? What's the idea behind this divide and conquer strategy in America today? More importantly, what is the agenda of Barack Obama and this federal government and the corporate interests that he represents? Well, we know a number of things. We know that there's an agenda for gun confiscation. Let me give you an example. Post the tragic killing of school children, Sandy Hook, which is a conspiracy in and of itself, but let's just step outside of that conspiracy for a moment because there are legitimate school shootings. How did Obama and the federal government and the mouthpiece that they speak through, the mainstream media, owned again by large corporate interests, how do they treat that? Well, they treated that school shooting and every school shooting we've seen over the past several years as a reason to ban guns. Why they need to go after not just AK-47s, semi-automatic and automatic weapons, and those that will hold, a significant number of rounds, but all guns. Because again, this is a threat to our children. And so they use and cherry pick certain events and then use it to push their agenda. And Obama's agenda, clearly, gun confiscation in America. He says it's to end the violence against our children. But you see, what if the agenda was different? For example, what if I was president of the United States and I had a hidden agenda that all school children should be homeschooled and shouldn't be in public school? Let's just say that as president of the United States and the people that I represented, there was an agenda to move the masses to homeschooling. Well, I could have cherry-picked the same events, these same school shootings, and then blasted through the mainstream media. See? This is why school children shouldn't be in public schools, because it's dangerous and they're getting killed and it's violent and people are using guns to kill children. This is exactly why, as President of the United States, and I ran on this in 2008 and my re-election, it's exactly why every school child in America today, boy and girl, should be homeschooled, because it is much safer. And you see, I would just cherry pick these specific events to push my agenda. Again, the agenda we know on one level is gun confiscation, and at a much higher level is divide and conquer. Keep the people bickering at each other Keep the masses focused on issues like racism in America, another agenda and big push by Obama. He was never a uniter. This was never about hope and change. This was about divide and conquer, and it's exactly what he's implemented. It's why they're harnessing and propelling even more racist hatred in America today to keep the people fighting. Now again, step outside of that box, step outside of people and events, and whether or not the Confederate flag should be at our state capitol buildings or whether or not it's racist, and take a larger top-down look at what the agenda is of Washington, D.C., the President of the United States, and ask the question, why? Notice how the elites in this country, the banksters, Wall Street, in Washington, the politicians owned by the corporate interests, notice how none of the focus is on them. It's only around social issues. SCOTUS today ruling on gay marriage. It's on people like Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner now cutting his dick off and inverting it so it turns into a vagina. So we have all these gay, genderless, sexless issues, LGBTQ, questioning and queer. We have people even at the White House, at Obama's own house, a transgendered immigrant heckling him, heckling the president. Absolutely amazing. But again, all a part of this divide and conquer strategy, this war. We have the debate of the Confederate flag, people like Jon Stewart of Comedy Central, having people like Judge Napolitano on the show and debating, again, the constitutionality and the civil rights aspects of being able to produce and have a Confederate flag at your house. Let's say that you want to fly a Confederate flag because you appreciate its history. Maybe you have ancestors that fought and died on the battlefield fighting for the South in a period of history, a tragic period of history during the Civil War. We have everybody focused on people and events, focused on hateful things like racism, transgenderism. I'll just invent that word because he really is the poster boy, now the poster girl for this, again, genderless, sexless society. And it's exactly why there's so much focus on social issues. Again, divide and conquer strategy. Keep the people focused on each other and not focused on the real problem, the real criminals, the top 0.001%. To remove our focus from the gigantic elephant in the room, like the largest wealth gap in the history of the world, a transference of wealth in the amount of trillions and trillions of dollars worth of bailouts to the top 0.001% and their friends on Wall Street in coordination with the criminal private Federal Reserve System. Keep the focus removed from these elitists, these people ripping us off. These people holding us in chains. These people that have us in handcuffs, preventing us from breaking free of our bondage. You see, if the people were actually smart and not ignorant, the great masses, the majority, not you tuning in, we would be organizing together of all races, all classes, all genders, all sexes, all sexual orientations. And all the energy would be focused on the President of the United States, this lying scumbag, on these politicians, on Wall Street raping us and ripping us off, on the Federal Reserve with its 0% interest rate funny money policies, stealing trillions from our pockets, making sure that baby boomers in this country that work their entire life can't get a return on investment because rates are at zero, forcing them into risk assets and creating some of the largest financial asset bubbles in the world, removing our focus from the new Cold War, this war against the BRICS nations, Russia and China namely, specifically, removing our focus from the creation of this cashless society and digital currency, the fomentation of competitor banks through Asian development countries like China in the name of the AIIB, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, a new world currency, a new world war. Take everybody's eye off the ball. Keep everybody focused on racist and hateful issues. Promote this through the mouthpiece that makes up Barack, insane in the membrane Obama, the mainstream media that has already been bought and paid for years ago, and remove all the focus and all the attention off of Wall Street, off these politicians, off the Federal Reserve itself. the real culprits, the real criminals. Again, the entire focus, if we had a real media, again, that's why you come to AM TV, that's why you come to the alternative media, that's why there's been a revolution in technology and digital media, that's why you've been tuning in, it's why we've got millions of people tuning in. If the media really cared about the people, they would be talking about the real issue, the real criminals. There would be a giant spotlight on this wealth gap, on this giant redistribution, engineered wealth transfer. All of this engineered in 2008 and 2009. Again, these banks responsible for the crisis, profiting in the trillions and trillions of dollars, not just on the upside, but also on the downside. Again, this is the agenda because it keeps these criminals in power. It keeps the focus off of them. It keeps the dipshits, the ignorant in America fighting each other. Speaking of, Dylann Roof, which I could argue, again, let's say it was my agenda to put focus on jobs. Dylann Roof, for example, didn't have a job. Maybe it had nothing to do with the Confederate flag and his obvious racism. I could put focus through the mainstream media on the fact that maybe he went on a killing spree because he was disillusioned because he couldn't get work. He said so himself when he was in front of, some kind of testimony or something. They had some cops behind him and they said, "Are you employed, sir?" And he said, "No." I could make the entire Dylann Roof story about the lack of jobs in America and put a giant spotlight on Barack Obama, who's been selling us a fake bullshit recovery and endorsing these Wall Street assholes so they can continue to rip us off. Again, the spotlight is around SCOTUS right now, the gay, transgender, sexless movement, all of these social, societal issues for a reason. Race at the forefront of public discourse for a reason. This debate on the Confederate flag for a reason. Everybody's so myopic, they're not seeing the forest through the trees. I urge all of us to wake up. I urge all of us to awaken from our ignorant stupor and better understand the real agenda here in Washington, D.C., the real agenda of corporate America and Wall Street and the criminal Federal Reserve. And I ask the American people, because again, this great land is by and for the American people. It's why we fought against the Redcoats and declared our independence in 1776. That we maintain our focus and shine that spotlight on the real issues, the real criminals in Washington, D.C., the President of the United States, his racist agenda. Not just to confiscate our guns, but to maintain his own power and the power of his cronies and his friends in Washington, D.C. and on Wall Street. That's the truth behind all of these shootings, these school shootings, the tragic Dylann Roof shooting, the SCOTUS ruling on gay marriage, Bruce Jenner supposedly going to make $500 million in the next few years with speaking fees and other engagements as a result of his transgenderism. This masculine guy who's now a feminine guy who inverted his dick and cut it off, and it's just being totally embraced by America. Wake up is the point. Wake up from your stupor. Wake up from this ignorant state of mind being propelled by the mainstream media and these people in power today that only have one goal and one intention: to maintain their power and remove themselves from the focus of public anger. Could you imagine if the spotlight was really shined on these heinous acts and on these heinous people and on the real criminals? If the American people and the world united against these people, could you imagine what would happen? We might truly be free. I'm Christopher Green. Get this video out everywhere, make it viral, hard hitting it in your face, and click the link below to support our sponsor.